Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining Out on Film in Conversations with as part of our 33rd annual festival, which we are virtual this year. My name is Craig Hardesty, and I am thrilled to be here right now with the creative team of Cicada. So we have with us today Matt Fifer, who is a co-star, co-director, co-writer. Sheldon D. Brown, who is also the co-star and provided the additional story behind his character, which we will talk about, and co-director Kieran Mulcare, and producer Jeremy Truong. So thank you all and welcome to Out on Film.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
us.
so much.
Thank you. I want to say first off, congratulations. It is a stunningly beautiful film. And I'm thrilled that you're getting lots of really, really good recognition and acclaim for it. So congratulations on all that and for the success of the film so far. I wanted to start with Matt and Sheldon really talking about this is really a personal story for both of you that you are telling or as part of this film. And I'm curious, and I think our audience is curious, that what made you decide that now was the time to tell this story? And Matt, we'll start with you.
Yeah, great question. It's a very personal film for me. I started it in 2018, the winter of 2018, and it was just one of those winters I couldn't get out of bed, and the only thing that really got me out of bed was writing it all down and writing it all out and getting it out. My character in the film has dysphagia, and it's one thing that I had for many years, and I still have. Where I have some things get stuck in my throat. And Kieran always said that I had a bad throat chakra through this whole thing. He did, which is a thing. And I think in a lot of ways I had to get this out. So I started writing this in January of 2018, and it really just poured out of me. I don't know if it was good, but after a month I had a draft. And I texted Sheldon, who I had met in the summer of 2015, right, Sheldon?
Yeah,
And
like spring or summer.
yeah, and he lives in Chicago, so I figured, maybe he'll come to New York and we could talk about it. But he texted me back, and he said he was actually in New York. And that week we grabbed a drink at this little bar called Syndicated with the theater in the back. And yeah, we didn't really talk about the film, and I sent him the script, I think the next day or maybe a few days later. And yeah, over the course of the next few weeks, Jeremy came on board, Kieran came on board, Eric, my DP, people I had worked with before. And then almost 2 months to the day, on April 9th, Sheldon texted that he had been shot, and that's when the whole project took a turn. Yeah, Sheldon, you want to continue?
Yeah, that's a great question. When Matt first approached me about this film, I had a lot of doubts and reservations about could this even be something that, at the time I hadn't even done a film before. And so I was thinking, okay, why me? Why do you think I could pull something like this off? And, I also have so much experience as, a Black queer male who has been in interracial relationships and has, uh, my own experiences and stories I could tell from that. And so when this event happened, it completely changed and uprooted my life. I had no idea if I was going to be performing again and what capacity. So when I reached out to Matt, it was kind of with the thought that I'm not sure this is something I could do. Um, but there was an opportunity to really process this story, process this event that happened to me, um, and prove to myself that this is something that I can do, and that for some reason I'm alive today, and that things could have went incredibly south, but I've been given the ability to be walking and talking and with even a deeper spirit. And so I was thinking, okay, hell, let's do it. Why not? My life has been pretty crazy. Why not make it crazier and do a film that has that story? And I'm grateful for Matt really holding space and allowing me to explore that and to bring that to his also very deep and raw story. And it wasn't an easy process. Putting that all together because these things are so personal and because um, of the place that we were in as people and not as these characters. And so I just was grateful for this whole process, with Kieran and with Matt and the whole team of really taking the time to um, add respect and truth to this, knowing that once we let go of this work, someone else is going to be affected and moved by that who may have similar or you know even crazier stories than what we live through.
So with that, so Kieran and Jeremy, how did you find your way to their stories and this story in particular, and what made you want to be part of this project? And Kieran, I'll start with you.
Well, I love Matt and Matt's work. I had read this script. Matt and I met Matt through his work, and we connected on social media, and he had been looking for an acting teacher, and I loved mine, K. Michael Patton, and I'd been studying with her for many years, and so he joined a class, and I happened to be working on a scene from The Great God Pan by Amy Herzog, which is about child sex abuse recovery, and I was forthcoming about being a survivor myself, and so Matt and I actually connected on that after that, and we worked on another project, me as an actor and him as a director, on that subject a few months later, and I think it was a whole year later that he came to me with the script, and it was one of the best screenplays I'd ever read. And I'd only acted up until that point. I'd been curious about directing, but I knew that if there was a story to tell, this was, the one that held the most personal meaning. And it was so witty, and it was also funny. It incorporated humor in a way that I just was so important to me and my own sensibility. And so he had asked if I'd be interested in co-directing, and I was scared too, but I said yes. So that was how I got involved. And Jeremy?
Yeah, and I think if you ask anyone, we would all agree that this production process was sort of really intense because we were dealing with very fresh sort of things, especially on Sheldon's side. And, we pulled the entire prep together maybe in like a month and a half at the most of like actual prep time. And everything at the time felt really rushed. And I think it was quite difficult for me on that end to like sort of understand, how to deal with that, because there was a lot of locations that were personal to Matt and like personal to a story, and it made the specificity of trying to find and shoot at these places quite difficult. But I think realizing now, like the significance of those things, especially when you frame the film in the lens of it being a healing tool and like being something that does sort of provide that catharsis, it did definitely make a difference, I think, when we went to shoot the film. But it for me was an incredible learning experience to not only, tell a story like this in the service of real life trauma that these two have experienced, but also just getting to make something like this that I think normally would have been really difficult to do in any other kind of system.
I one of the things that struck me as I was watching the film is that there is a lot. I mean, both of these characters, they bring a lot of their experience in their lives to the screen and to each other. But centrally, this is a love story, and it's really a beautiful love story. And I'm curious, Kieran and Matt, as you're directing this, how did you keep the focus really on the love story as you're also incorporating, the traumas that Ben and Sam experience and how they're navigating this together, but really keep that focus on truly a beautiful love story? And Kieran, I'll start with you.
I know I can't take credit for that. And I'll tell you why. Because when Matt and our editors had, all taken stabs at cuts of this, it was in the later stages that I was like, man, this is really a romance. I had never put a genre on it at all. Part of that is a testament to the talent of particularly these actors here. Sheldon so lovingly gave such and bravely gave such a big part of himself that first of all, not many actors do, I think, in their careers, and second of all, not something a lot of trauma survivors do so soon after experiencing something traumatic. And Matt's love for his craft, and I don't know, the love that the self-love involved, I think, in telling your own story is the thing that created what we were able to capture, and what Matt was able to edit together ultimately in something that was surprisingly like, oh, this is, because I think that is the elixir of the story, that it is the love that these two have for each other that ultimately heals those wounds, or provides a path for healing these wounds. And yeah, so it wasn't me.
I think
Matt,
you answered it, though. I have nothing else to add. Except that it was like also Kyle, our editor, very much involved, like in honing that together, and Jeremy as well, and Sheldon and everybody watching the cuts. A lot of it was, as they say, the script dies on the page and then it's reborn in production, then it dies again and it's reborn in the editing process. And in so many ways, it was really born in the editing process.
The map is different from the terrain. I think that was, the original script is an amazing map, both from Matt and Sheldon's contribution, and then the terrain was its own thing, and then we redrew the map. Matt redrew, and the editors redrew the map.
I also want to say that Kyle, our editor, like, such an amazing filmmaker and so sensitive and intelligent, and I did not know that, like, his two fathers, he has his parents are in an interracial relationship, and he dropped that, like, Jeremy, I don't know when I found out, but it was like a month after we're like editing. And I think, like, definitely the love he saw in his own parents, he incorporated into the edit. Yeah,
for sure.
I will say it is really a beautiful scenes with Ben and Sam, particularly negotiating being in an interracial relationship. And so for Matt and Sheldon, as you're in those scenes and performing those scenes, after what would you want the audience, what would you hope that people would take from the just the clarity that you provide in those scenes about being in navigating early in even an interracial relationship, and talk about it very authentically, I think?
Yeah.
Let's start with you, Sheldon.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what you see in the relationship is that it's not always clear. It's like, it's a lot of negotiation of space, and a negotiation of experiences. I think that what you see a lot in the film with this relationship between Ben and Sam is that there is a lot of love and investment there. So they're willing to put themselves in very uncomfortable, um, emotional, passionate, all of these things because they want the other person to get them and to hold them and cherish them and keep them safe and all of these things. And that's how relationships work. And relationships work when two people are willing to kind of step outside themselves and really meet the other person where they are. And that process for interracial relationships, speaking only for me and my experiences, it's a hard process. It's a hard step, and we don't always get it right. We don't always know what to do. And I think Matt and I revisited a lot of scenes being like, okay, how do we capture this moment? Because, you know, it's really, really important. It's really significant. And it's, you know, being in this, both of us have experienced this, like, this can get intense. And so I think that was something that's so beautiful for queer people to see, you know, on top of, you know, everyone, but especially queer people, and how we negotiate those race in the gay community, along with just the society as a whole. So yeah, I want people to take that, you know, when you invest in love into someone else who is different from you, you will push yourself to making space for them, and to bringing them close to you, and allowing yourself to be uncomfortable and go on that journey with them, because you love them.
Matt?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is that it is hard, and it's important to say that it's hard because growing up, the one and only interracial relationship, queer relationship that I saw was on 6 Feet Under, and that was like, you know, seminal for me. And then, you know, in my adult life, I learned that it was written by a writer's room of white guys, and that this story wasn't really genuine to Keith. Like, it was always talking about how difficult it was because David wasn't out. I don't know if people are familiar with the show, but fantastic show. You know, it's in all of the top 10s and everything. But I think we have to talk about it, like, in 2020, we have to talk about it in a new way. Like, it wasn't genuine to Keith's experience. It was difficult for them because David wasn't out, but it was really difficult because, like, they were in an interracial relationship and they had all these other things going on. So, you know, we really wanted to get into it a lot in Cicada, but you know, there's only so much room in 90 minutes. So I think, you know, I really would like to see where these characters go, and keep the conversation going. So.
And Kieran and Jeremy, one of the things, as we talked about a little bit earlier, how you know, how personal these stories are, and through their production and through the direction and through the cinematography, you really can tell that you're taking great care of Matt and Sheldon through these scenes, which are very intimate. They're very messy, you know, and they're very vulnerable and emotional. It's like, how do you approach these scenes, like from a production standpoint, from a direction standpoint, where you really can create that space for them to take care of them in the way that you do? Jeremy, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'll let Kieran speak about the direction side of things, but I think just in the way that we shot things, you know, this film had a lot of long shots, and we oftentimes spent most of these scenes doing a lot of just these like singular shot type things. And especially for the scenes that have a lot more intensity and a lot more weight behind them, I think those are the ones that we really spent maybe close to like half an entire day to do just those one or two scenes. And in comparison, like the way that we shot the other scenes, we were moving so fast. Like we were shooting pages on pages on pages in hours. So I think there definitely was a focus on those things, and to definitely give those moments the space that they needed. It helped that our crew was on the smaller side already, so it did already feel a lot more intimate. It didn't feel as much like we were encroaching upon their space. Oftentimes it was just them in the bedroom, and everyone else would sort of just step out and kind of do whatever while this happened. And I think it was just everyone kind of coming together to nurture these processes and to nurture the scenes that took longer naturally than most of what the other film was sort of, the natural amount of time it did take.
Go ahead, Kieran.
I think that the film is much more a testament to how well all of these artists were able to create that environment themselves, because I can't take much responsibility for doing that. I know that when I was taking on the mantle of director was so disturbing to me because of my own issues with authority and my own disharmonies as an actor with a director. Yeah, I don't love this sort of saturnine, it's this way because I said it, manner that, I sometimes see with filmmakers, and often with filmmakers who just don't understand acting. My approach to the whole process was honoring that the story itself is the healing thing. The truth of the story needed to be the leader, not me, not Matt, not anyone. The truth of the story needed to be the leader. So most of my work was about harmonizing people with that truth. The Tao Te Ching, did I just say that? I was reading a lot of the Tao Te Ching. I was reading Stephen Mitchell's translation of the Tao Te Ching. Amazing. But, it's all about the Tao, the flow, and being in harmony with it, accomplishing all without doing anything. Which is a really great way to shirk any responsibility, for directing. But keeping people in touch with that and working on a schedule is very challenging when you're dealing with very sensitive issues, when you're also a white person, trying to tell a story. And I've been many interracial friendships, but never an interracial, romantic relationship, and honoring that space and to the best of my ability, and knowing, sensitivity is really great in one regard. In another regard, white fragility is, the enemy of progress. And how do you maintain that? And it was a learning process, but yeah, we were just all doing our best, I guess, with the time we had, and I'm very proud of what we created.
I am curious. There's, in such an emotional and very heavy film, there are some moments of levity, and one of those is Ben's therapist. Talk to me about how Ben's therapist came to be, and when she's in, what inspired her.
Yeah, there's someone out there who's pretty similar to her. She's an amalgam of a few people, but she's there's somebody in my mind, and she's out there. If she's watching, she knows who she is. And Kieran was is friends with Kobe, so that's how we were so fortunate and lucky to have her on set. And might I say that she is the most incredible actor. She carried C-stands down the stairs. She did dishes.
She did the dishes on this set.
She was, working with Guillermo, the dog who played Kalana.
Who was a big diva.
Who was such a diva, right? Lots of cigarette breaks. And she just felt like, in a lot of ways, she felt like a therapist that day. And I was so nervous, and she just made me feel like, I don't know, like I was in therapy. Yeah. And
she was so, it's because of the brilliance of the script that she agreed to do it. When she read it, she's a friend, but I'm sure she wouldn't agree to do something not great. But yeah, that I knew that character she would really shine in that. And it's just so, it's just delicious. That character, so good.
So I am curious, as you've all kind of gone through this process and you've made the film and kind of as you have a little bit of distance on it right now, when you think of it, when you look at it, what's the moment in the film that you're just really proud of, that you're like, yeah, that's it? Sheldon, I'll start with you.
Oh, wow. That's such a great question. Um, First was, I remember when I was reading the script, that sent me a script, and I was seeing all these like montage scenes. Just reading montage, love making montage, this and that. Watching the film and seeing all of these beautiful moments where we're like just doing random adventures in New York, capturing this little thing and this tiny thing, and seeing how that was, how like seeing that put together and what it looks like at the end, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. And it was so, I remember those days I had so much fun uh, doing those scenes, even though it was like, it wasn't us like sitting down, hunkered down, talking about like, all right, like this is gonna be intense, this is serious, blah, 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 blah. It was just like having these moments that are just Matt and I hanging out, and they look really beautiful and gorgeous. And I also love shooting my scene in the park because the first time anything I wrote it was on camera, and that was such a beautiful experience to finally to accomplish that as an actor and as an artist.
Excellent. Matt, how about you?
Ooh, so there's this one scene at the end of the montage. I think it's the last montage where I'm coming out to everybody and I'm just I'm talking to a friend, Gil, and we're sitting on the stoop, and it was like a really hot day. We were stuck inside all day. And I guess it was the end of the day as well. And it was just so nice to sit with her. And she only had a few lines, but she just couldn't get to them. She just didn't feel like she was comfortable. And anyway, Kieran yelled out, "Hey, Gil, just, do whatever comes naturally. Just do whatever." And she took a deep breath, and she just looked at me, and I knew that what she was about to say was, coming from a real place. And so that last piece of the montage, she's coming out about her own abuse, and she hadn't really told anybody up until that point. She did this in front of our crew and me, and it was just really incredibly brave, and I knew at that moment that we were doing something right. So yeah, I don't know, like watching it, not knowing that if it's special, but for me it's the whole world.
Excellent. And Kieran, how about you?
This is a hard one. I selfishly am gonna take 2 moments, and I think it's because of it's the same bravery that Gil was talking about. It was just on their part. Watching Sheldon's monologue. When we first rehearsed that, I remember sobbing in the corner of my living room when we were practicing it, and then him doing that in an uninterrupted take so soon after it happened, and just seeing what I don't know if a lot of people, especially when Sheldon's relatively new to acting on camera, and to see that level of like of mastery, it's unfathomable. And then Matt's not the final thing you see in the film, but Matt's final moment in the film, when we had this moment when I was directing where I said, "Speak for the child you were," and that what that opened up to see that captured. Those are the 2 moments that kept me.
And then Jeremy, as you've been shepherding this production and been involved in it, what is the moment that you're most proud of?
Yeah, it's hard for me to particularly pick a moment, but I think in the overall scheme of things, it's hard to comprehend just the volume of footage that we actually did shoot and how much we captured and what it is now. Like I could say we probably had double the length of the movie in the first assembly cut, and to really have this problem of having too much rather than too little, and crafting the story to be so nuanced and to really tackle like the topics that we felt like were important. Because I do think this film achieves a lot in that it tackles so many topics, and it was really hard to find this through line that I think resonated with people. So I think I am super proud that we were just able to do those scenes, and like Sheldon's monologue was unchanged from the beginning, just like one shot, stayed in the movie for a year, basically, never changed. And then to go and really refine that storyline and to have what we have now is such a transformation than what we could have really imagined.
So tell me, as we kind of wrap up, our audience always is interested to know, indie film is hard to get made. So what was your production schedule like? I mean, from start to finish, kind of, how did this all, what's the time frame and how did all this come together?
Yeah, I started in January of 2018. This all happened like it was February, then it was April, then we started shooting in July 12th was our first day, and we shot for 19 days. So yeah, bizarrely fast, but again, only because of the generosity of like our DP who donated his equipment, and he was the whole camera department. Everybody took on multiple roles. Like Jeremy was locking down locations and making chicken teriyaki with one hand. And, Chris, our set designer, he became scripty. On his break, he like drove down to Pennsylvania to buy fireworks. Kieran, was also being therapist and co-director and co-pilot. And it only happened because it was an indie film. Like, yeah, we became a family, and I can't imagine doing that again any other way, but I can't imagine doing what we just did again.
Yeah, I think we were exhausted probably for like 2.5 months after shooting. Just like took that long to actually regain our sleep cycle back. And it was just like, I don't even know if we were really aware of like what we were doing, because it was like day in, day out. Like Matt obviously, like, we were shooting in his apartment, so we leave and then come in and he's like still in his bed and I'm like setting up breakfast. Like it was such an intense process. And I think it being indie does allow us to, I think, maybe take a little more liberties with what we were able to do, but it was a very intense process.
And so what's next for the film? You're on the film festival circuit. So what is next for the film?
We just started our festival circuit again after COVID took us down for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess what's on the docket right now, like we're excited to go back to BFI for the London Film Festival in October, and that's been a really special experience for us because we were meant to open there in March and just like didn't happen, obviously. So we're doing festivals for the next few months for sure, and then probably going to explore how to get it to everybody.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, I thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for sharing this story, particularly as personal it was for Matt and Sheldon, for sharing this story with all of us here at Out on Film. And thank you very much for having this conversation with me this afternoon. And I hope all of you out there, if you haven't seen Cicada and you're just joining us for this conversation, please watch the film. It is beautifully done. And I have to say to all of you, thank you. It is really a beautiful film. So thank you for making it and sharing that story with all of us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.